Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm Jack Gately, your host. This is the 1620 Today podcast. Beth, this is episode number 5.
Oh, I missed number 4, right?
You did miss
I
that.
took a little trip.
You did,
yeah.
to an undisclosed location.
And Mother's Day birthday getaway.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was good.
Good. You know, I'm just looking at the monitor here. We do need to do something with the back here.
Yeah,
we have to have some type of backdrop here or something like that. We'll work on that. Very important episode today. We are with the Plymouth Family Resource Center and Bay State Community Services. Thank you so much for coming. Let's see if I can get these names right. I probably won't, but forgive me if I get them wrong. Our subjects today are substance abuse and children's mental health in Plymouth, with a Plymouth focus, of course, for the 1620 Today podcast, which you can find on Spotify, YouTube, or at 1620 Today, or on Facebook at 1620 Today, all one word. And Arcuri, hopefully we got that right, and Sloane Fernaz is joining us. So I did all right? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. And Ann is the program director, right?
Yeah.
For the Plymouth Family Resource Center. Correct. So we would just pretend we know nothing and just give us a little overview of what you guys do. That would be great.
Sure. So I'll start. The Plymouth Family Resource Center opened July of 2020, so right at the beginning of the pandemic. We are a free center, resources for people 0 all the way up to 99. We offer mental health services for kiddos who are struggling out in the community through our CRA initiative. We work with families to get kiddos back on track if they're struggling within school, within the community, trying to keep them out of the court system. So we offer clinical assessments for those guys and set up family planning and support to offer longer-term help for these guys. In addition to that, we're doing mental health services, basic needs support, so housing, food insecurity, helping people get health insurance, get DDS, DMH support. We're also running groups, some support groups, grandparents raising grandchildren, for example, teen LGBTQ support group. We're also running parent education classes for parents, and then we run events and activities for the whole family.
All right, great. Sloane?
So I work for Bay State Community Services. I am a recovery coach. I work with people that have substance use disorder. I again work with Ann, and I do run a Moms in Recovery group on Fridays at the Plymouth Family Resource Center at 1:00. It's open to any moms that are in recovery or at least trying to find resources into recovery. I have been a recovery coach for going on, 7 years now. So I really help anybody in the community, normally I work with just adults, but if there is children out there, then, we make sure that we find the resources for them. But it doesn't matter if you're a male or a female. If you need help, there are plenty of resources, and I'm one of the people that will find them for you. Either find them for you, or if I have availability, I will be the person that gives you, helps you along that way.
That's great. So you said you started right at the beginning of the pandemic, right?
Yes.
Was this something that was like you were working on for a long time to open, or was it just did it just start then because you saw a need because kids were out of school, that sort of thing, or?
Sure. So family resource centers are across Massachusetts. There are 27 of us. So it's kind of perfect timing for Plymouth. It's something that had been in the works for a long time. There was a lot of advocacy within the court system, DCF. Some of the local politicians were asking for it. So we were awarded the contract December 2019.
Wow.
Yep. And then, officially were approved in March and kind of went from there. So it was really perfect timing for the pandemic. And
March is when everything closed down.
Yes. Yep.
Wow. That's good timing.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so.
With that, I know that since you weren't in business, or so to speak, business, not really a business, but how have you seen, even the short sample that you've been here, and I know that you have experience prior to that,
Sure.
but from an individual point of view, what's going on with child mental health? I mean, I think we're seeing a huge interest in this as a topic. Mm-hmm. Beth had a follow-up question in a few minutes. Maybe she's going to ask about social media, which is, even longer, been around longer, but especially when the kids weren't home. And what's the long-lasting impact? What type of things are you seeing, I guess is the question, especially here in Plymouth, but, in a larger perspective if you want to go that way too.
Sure. So, just for example, our goal was to service 250 families. That includes youth struggling with mental health, and we served almost 1,200 the first year. So the impact is huge. Return to school for kids were really tough after being home for almost a year. So we're seeing a lot of anxiety, depression, social struggles. People, youth seem to be behind a year or two socially from where they would have been. And it's just overall getting them to go to school every day and be excited about it has been tough.
I just heard like a bunch of kids, like they're in whatever grade they're in, one of the very young age grades, and they had never been in class with they'd never been in class.
Sure, yeah.
They were in kindergarten.
Or they had never been in class without a mask, and they didn't like. There were a lot of things that were off.
Yes. And I can speak to that personally. I have a third grader. So for second graders now, they've never had a full school year without a mask or pandemic distance.
Right.
My son had it in kindergarten, and that was the last for him. So yeah, that has been a struggle. And there's, in addition to mental health, you see kids struggling with penmanship skills and like basic social sharing skills because they didn't have that exposure early on.
Right, I'll trade you an Oreo if you give me a
Yes.
Fig Newton or whatever, stuff like that,
Exactly.
right? That was my favorite part of lunch when I was a kid.
Right.
In regards to that, I think a lot of that also can flow from the parents. I mean, it's been a very stressful time for parents. I mean, not being able to go to your job, and especially I think what we've seen a lot of is the folks that had some type of office job or internet job. It's really been like a tale of two pandemics. If you worked at a job that you needed to be frontline, like customer facing, restaurant would be typical example of that. But it's almost as if it was a totally different experience for people that it was more like a class divide more than or an educational or job divide. We have a neighbor who he's never been happier. Like he hasn't gone to the city and he's grown a man bun and he's happy as a clam.
But he also has teenagers who are on top of their work, and so I don't think he had the pressures of like, I have to teach this kid how to
Right.
read or whatever it would be.
And a lot of that,
But go ahead, Sloane.
What Ian said, the struggles that you see with teenagers or children in general, and how you were just talking about how he happens to be fabulous.
Right.
There's so many other parents out there that aren't doing okay, trying to figure out how to navigate their children, and we find that the drinking and substance use has doubled, if not tripled, since all of this has happened.
Absolutely.
People are stuck at home. What better to do than, to have that one glass of wine? Well, that one glass of wine turned into that one bottle.
Kidding me.
That one bottle turned into, 4 or 5 bottles, and so on and so forth. So with this pandemic, we have seen this huge spike in substance use disorder in any form, whether it be, in a drug form or alcohol, and the overdoses.
Of people in long-time recovery
Right.
prior to the pandemic.
Yes, absolutely.
Ah.
People that were, that thought they would be fine. Oh, I haven't had a drink, but what's one glass of wine? One glass of wine, or doing, whatever illegal substance that they could get their hands on it, whatever, or the pill, one pill, or whatever the case was. The substance use disorder has tripled. Overdoses are off the charts. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of people during this pandemic due to overdoses.
So right here in our studio, which is high above Town Square, just in the last year, and this is just from being downtown, but it seems to me that one of the worst outcomes of substance abuse is obviously being without a home, right?
Yep.
And it appears as if that number, and this is just totally unprofessional, just anecdotal, just a guy observing his town. seems to be up.
Yes, the homeless rate is definitely skyrocketed. And unfortunately, they can go to the Family Resource Center to do housing paperwork and get on the housing lists and that sort of thing, or come to me or whoever. There's plenty of, places that will help you, but there's nowhere to go.
Right.
There's no quick fix to any of this. There's not housing out there, and what is out there is so expensive people can't afford it. And if you're lucky enough to have maybe a certificate or whatever, they're all full.
You mean to rent?
For Section 8.
Section 8
yeah.
or whatever the programs that they may be lucky enough to have. There's nothing out there.
And we don't in no way expect that we're all going to solve all these problems in the next 20 minutes, Like, we're just talking about this so that we can let other people in our community be aware of it.
Right.
Maybe we can make some progress that way. But you talked about availability for actual housing. But before you can actually, in the most part, pay the rent, you've got to kick the habit in one way or not. So tell us a little bit about the availability. We were just watching Ozark last night,
That show.
and
violent, but-
someone fell asleep, but it's okay. But just before, one of the characters goes to the mental health center, and she wants to get checked in, and the guy's like, we have 160 beds, and we have 164 patients. Sorry.
Yeah.
And that happens all too often. And the problem, especially with substance use disorder, is when the person is ready, that moment doesn't always last. It might be a moment. You might get a day or two.
It's fluid.
But depending on the substance they're using, some of them are physically ill. So, a lot of it is mental health, but there's a lot of things out there that they're physically ill from. And they can't go without. And when they're ready, if you can't get them somewhere in that moment, the likelihood that, and it can be days, it can be weeks before we can find them a bed. Once you find them the bed, you've either lost them, you don't know where they are, or they're like, nah, I'm good. So that's a huge struggle.
Where do you find these beds? I mean, there's High Point in Menomet, right near our house.
You call everywhere. I don't call
How far?
As far out as I can.
New Hampshire even.
Yeah, there's some places in New Hampshire that will take like Mass Health. They've opened their border, so to speak. But I'll call anywhere. I don't care. I've driven people hours away.
Springfield, I think you drove
Yes,
this time.
I've driven people hours away. If I can get them a bed, and it's a matter of them getting there, get in. I'm taking you.
What's the effectiveness of detox as we know it?
Well, for me, I call detox a spin cycle because you're only in detox for a few days. Once you leave detox, it's the after work that's going to get you to the next step. And for the rest of your days, you have to make sure that that's what it's a decision every day, right? Once you go through the detox, but you have to do the work. If you don't do the work and you don't change the people, places, and things, the likelihood that just because you went through that detox and that's great, that's perfect, because that's where you got to start, right? But you got to do the work. And that's where places like the Family Resource Center comes in, or someone like me, a recovery coach, or downstairs, the Recovery Center, PCO Hope, getting the people to help you do the after work.
But you can't do that until you do the detox first.
99% of the
You have
time.
to get physically healthy before
Yeah.
you can get mentally
And-
healthy.
Yep.
I know you're not like in the policy side of things, but what's being done to increase capacity, so to speak?
If I could answer that, I totally would, but I don't know. Because, again, a lot of places, because of the pandemic, a lot of programs have closed. A lot of places don't have the help. So they, say they had 200 beds pre-pandemic. Now, if we're lucky, if they have 75.
Because
know?
they're having the same staffing problem that a lot of businesses have.
Yeah, same with the mental health field. It's just the wait lists are extremely long because there's no staff to support.
Right.
And it's not
And
a
it's the
field.
same
It's not
idea.
a field that you go into for the big paycheck.
No, it is not.
No. Even I have a brother who has severe autism. He's 55. They haven't been in a day program
Right.
since it happened, and so they've got
and
these.
he's suffering from that,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah, and
because-
the staff, because they can't staff. Because I thought it was a matter of they're just not open yet because of the mask and mandate and all that. But they're like, no, we can't get anyone to work.
Yep.
Right.
So where did all those
And
people go
that's-
that used to work there?
And that's the thing, we see so many people in the mental health field, whether it be mental health or substance use disorder, people, it's not an easy job to do. So people, and burnout is real, because when you're trying to help, and now we're running into such roadblocks all of the time, it gets so frustrating sometimes. So if we're that frustrated, imagine being the person that's trying to get the help and trying to, being the person that needs that help, how frustrating that's got to be for them.
Let me ask you a much bigger picture question. We've been fighting this war on drugs since the day I was born.
The 80s.
The 80s.
Yeah, or even
Even before that,
60s.
but,
Yeah, it hasn't worked. We're losing, and so what do we do about that as a society? I imagine you're a frontline worker. This must dawn on you like almost every day when you have a split second to think about something.
I will say things are, we are trying to change in this community of people that are, dealing with substance use disorder. And we have been working with the police departments and, other people trying, so we can't arrest our way out of this, right? Because a couple of years ago, if you got caught being high or whatever the case, they put you in jail. Well, what did that do, right? So things are changing very slowly, but it is change. We are trying to change these things, and the stigma, trying to remove the stigma. Just because someone's an addict doesn't make them a bad person. It makes them a person that has a substance use disorder. And there's still so many people out there that are like, oh, well, they chose to do that. Well, I didn't choose to wake up one day and go, I'm going to be an addict today. You don't choose, you don't wake up, and everybody's story is different. You can't cookie cut saying, you were doing this and you were doing that. Well, just because you both were doing the same thing doesn't mean that it didn't affect you differently than you. Like, you
Right.
might be able to have that glass of wine. You might not be able to have that glass of wine. And if you do, you're off and running. She might have that one glass of wine and be like, yeah, I'm good.
Sounds like the Johnny Cash song.
Actually the opposite.
So
No,
I mean,
yeah.
the stigma is so it's you see it, you hear it every single day, and as much as you try to educate people, and that's the thing, people need to be educated.
It seems like we're heading as a society very slowly towards legalization of some things. How has that affected both your work for both kids and adults?
Go ahead.
I mean, I don't, to kind of step back to the previous question, I think, some of the problem solving with substance use disorder is getting kids into programming, getting them excited, connecting them to adults who are positive. And, not every kid's a sport kid, not every kid's a music kid. So that's part of the Family Resource Center's mission, is to get kids who would otherwise be sitting at home alone or hanging out with maybe some kids who are going down the wrong path and get them into positive programming. So that's why we run LGBTQ support groups. That's why we're running teen life skills groups. That's why we're encouraging kids to find jobs. We're doing a teen job fair next week at the center, as a matter of fact. So those are the things that are going to hopefully, it's not a guarantee, but hopefully keep them out of those dangerous paths of trying drugs or feeling peer pressured into doing so.
Right.
And kind of what she just said, I think, again, I'll go back to the stigma. If people don't, they can see somebody and they're like, oh, look at that person. Well, that doesn't, just because they're, maybe they don't look the part that you think, doesn't make them a bad person. People look at me and they have no idea that I have a drug history. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh, you do? You did? I'm like, yeah, but I'm very forthcoming with it because that's what's part of my job. And, and like when we started the Moms in Recovery group, we started it a year ago, and thankfully, Ann has, well, the Family Resource Center, but Ann, the space was big enough that I knew that I needed to get these ladies back in human contact, because I was watching them all just fall off, disappear, or almost get swallowed up in their own heads in mental health and then their addictions. But the Family Resource Center was big enough that we could come in person, and I was one of the very few in person at that time. I don't even know if few is even the word.
We should probably just mention where you're located,
Sure. So we're in North Plymouth. We're 430 Court Street.
which is in the old shopping plaza.
It is. It's Stop and Shop, right on the Kingston line.
Okay, great. I know Beth had a follow-up question about peer pressure.
Well, I also wanted to ask, during the virus and in the aftermath of the virus, was there a specific age group that you saw more coming for help, or was it sort of all over the place, like in terms of teens or preteens, or?
It's really like the ages 8 to 10 and then 15 up.
Okay.
So there's this little gap on those preteens.
So not the middle
tweens.
schoolers. You would think they would.
Yeah, they seem to be doing okay. It's the late elementary school and then the high school kids that are really struggling.
Okay.
And what about the social media aspect?
Well,
of that?
this seems kind of trivial now. What we were talking about addiction and these other things. I did wonder if you guys had any opinions on just kids and social media. I know not every kid has a phone, but most of them do.
Oh, I know. I have older children.
Yeah.
And social media plays a huge role in their lives.
Right.
Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. You never know, because people can be abusive through social media.
Right.
I call them telephone tough guys. But if you're not if you don't have a parent that's well aware of what's happening,
Right.
or a suspicion, or it's just plain nosy, you know what I mean? That abuse can be going on and you have no idea. Or they could be, doing things, setting up that, going out to do things that they're not supposed to, and we don't know it because they're picking up that phone
And they just know where everyone is all
right,
the time.
exactly. Like there's trackers, like Snapchat or whatever has
Snap map.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they don't need to know you're out at Walmart with your mother.
Yeah, but I mean, in the '80s, if you wanted to get in trouble, you knew where to hook up with the kids that
Right.
were,
Yeah.
that was behind the convenience store or
Sure.
wherever it was.
The local Cumberland Farms parking lot.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you knew where to find the trouble, and I don't think I think the delivery of that information may have changed, but you knew, right? So you buy the Cumbies.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think the pressure of the social media and what other people think about each other it can be
Bullying
devastating,
is
and
out.
that can lead, I think, I'm no expert, I'll ask you, I think that can lead to a substance abuse problem, because as a way to deal with that pressure.
If you don't have the
Self-esteem,
coping,
or-
yeah. So I think it's important. I think social media can be a positive for kids, especially during the pandemic when they're stuck at home. Like my son started playing Fortnite, which I'm not proud of, but it was his way of connecting with kids when he
Right.
couldn't do that in person. But I think it's important for parents to be educated on what's out there for social media and then how to manage it. So we are in works with the district attorney's office to offer that educational training to parents. So that should be coming up this summer.
And I'll be taking that.
And let's face it, we're all guilty of being on our phones.
Right,
Sure, as
absolutely.
For
it's
Facebook
right here, and I
or
can feel it
Instagram or
buzzing.
whatever we
Yeah.
want.
So we're not
I'm-
great role models, right? But I think it's
Talk about
important-
addiction.
Especially during the pandemic. when
Right.
you're
This
home.
is one.
Yes.
This is.
Absolutely.
Man, I'm addicted.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
If
and
I
I
lose
have-
my phone, I panic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I
That's
can't lose it.
Everything I have is in here. Every contact, everything I have is in here.
Right.
I'd sooner lose my wallet and my glasses before I lose this thing.
Yeah.
Right? From my cold, dead hands, you're taking this phone from me, right? And I don't go anywhere without it.
think
I'm totally addicted to that.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's important to be good role models, right? It's important to set those trackers on phones. My 11-year-old has a phone. There's a tracker. I could find out where she is right now.
Right.
It's important to have them plug their phone in at night when they go to bed and sneak around and see what's going on. And it's important to know what websites are out there.
Good
I don't know
idea.
anything about
Yeah.
Twitter. What's that one? TikTok was new to me when she started using it.
Right.
She lost it 2 days when I found out what it was. But like those things are important.
Because you can't control the content, the
Right,
adult
you
content
can't,
that
even
they're
when you
putting
have
out there.
the parental limits
You're
on.
right.
In Snapchat, I'm not a fan of Snapchat because, again, I'm not even really positive, but I'm pretty sure, like, again, telephone tough guys, they can send you a message. As soon as you open it, it disappears. So there's no way to say, like a text message, you can see
Right,
it unless
right.
I physically erase it. But a Snapchat, as soon as you read it, it's gone.
It goes away.
We do sound kind of like our parents, though.
We do.
I do,
Very
and I'm
much.
all right with that. I like my mom, so
I know,
I'm
right?
good.
I actually do have a question for you, Ann, about we have teenagers, and so I see a lot of anxiety in teens and their friends and just different problems that kids might have. What advice would you give to, say, a parent of a child who, could probably benefit from some services, but they're reluctant? Is there any? I know it's kind of a widespread question, but I know there's a lot of kids that say, "Oh, I don't want to go talk to anyone about my insecurities because, what's that going to do?"
Right. So that's a really great question. At the beginning, I had said we do these clinical assessments for families. And that's exactly what it is having the youth come in, having the guardians come in, say what's going on, getting a whole comprehensive history, but then also saying to that youth, what are you willing to do? What change would you like to see, and how can we get you there? So maybe for some kids, it's not going to a counselor. Maybe it's going to a group. Maybe they really want to play baseball and have been afraid to ask, right, because of the cost. Right. Maybe they need a mentor. Maybe they want to join a gym. Whatever it is, that's what we're going to focus on, and everyone's going to agree to that, and then our family partner is going to help get those things in place for that kiddo. So every kid is different.
Right.
Really listen to your child, listen to what the need is, listen to what they're missing, give them options, and follow that lead, right? So you want your kid to be all-star baseball player, but they're really a musician, and that's what they're telling you. Listen to that and let them follow that dream and support it.
And sometimes they don't tell you what they need, and they just
And
are looking
that's
for
what
you to-
I was just going to go on. Sometimes they don't tell you what they need, and you as a parent, or as anybody, a caregiver or a resource person, we have to give that,
Give those choices.
give those
yeah.
choices,
Right.
give them the options, and offer them. Well, hey, like she just said, you don't want to play baseball? Well, what about playing the clarinet or trombone? Or, you know what I mean?
let's
Like
try
giving.
this.
What about this? What about that? Be open-minded. Because I think a lot of times people are closed-minded when they are set in their own
They
ways.
have this view for their child
Right,
of what it's going to
exactly.
be, what they're going to grow up to be.
Right.
And it's not always the case.
Right.
So
Yeah.
You mentioned partners. So you mentioned PCO Hope a couple of times. In a nutshell, just tell us what that is. And I know that you wanted to kind of give a shout out to some of your partners. Sloane.
So PCO Hope has been around for quite some time. Susan, she is the founder of the PCO Hope. And we have lots of different partners that are all either recovery coaches or recovery allies. So I do have a couple phone numbers that I think it'd be good for other people to have.
Go right ahead.
So PCO Hope, Heather, she is a recovery coach, Heather Grady, and her phone number is 781-927-5018.
can I jump in about Heather too?
Absolutely.
Because Heather helps us out quite a bit at the Resource Center. So once a month, it's the third Wednesday of every month from 11:30 to 2:30. We do a free family market where we give diapers, wipes, formula, food, clothing to people in need. And every month Heather comes and she'll give out Narcan to families, no questions asked.
So Narcan is you can get certified. Well, not certified. They'll train you on how to use it. Narcan is if someone is in an active overdose, it helps to reverse it long enough for the paramedics to get there, to get the help.
Call 911
Call
first.
911 and then administer the Narcan. Again, Heather or any of these people, even myself, can show you how to use it. Narcan. Substance use disorder, it doesn't discriminate who it is. It could be anybody. It could be the person that is walking down the street and has Gucci from head to toe, or it could be the homeless person that hasn't showered in a month. Right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what area or what you do. So I think everybody should be equipped with Narcan. But anyway, so yeah, so everybody, you know, again, the resource center, they can get you Narcan. It is free. And so, but yeah, like I said, the Plymouth Family Resource Center, we also, it's at the once a month, we offer it there. They will train you. Anne Marie Winchester, here's another phone number. She is also part of PCO Hope, 781-820-6161. Again, 211, you can call, and they will give you the information.
211.
211.
All right,
So
tell
it's-
us more about that.
So 211 is kind of.
It's not when I
kinda
call.
like-
I don't call that for a pothole, right?
Yeah, no. So it's for resources in Massachusetts, and a lot. So 211, there are a couple different things, like the COVID testing, the shots and all that. That's one of the things they do. The second option will be substance use disorder, and then you can talk to somebody. They can give you resources. They can help you, point you in the direction, give you different detox numbers, and there are some, depending on who you're talking to at the time, they might be able to even give you meetings in your area and whatnot. So 211 is it can be very useful too.
They also do mental health services, housing support, childcare. So it's a wide range of resources.
Yeah, there's a
for the
lot of
state.
different things that
I wasn't
on
aware
there.
they had that. How
Yeah.
long is that? Do you guys know?
Years,
Just a few.
2 years?
So not
I
super
don't even
long.
know. It's been a
least 2
while.
years,
It's been
at
around at least 2 years, but it's been around a while. But a lot of, again, it's word of mouth. It's
Right.
not like they have commercials for it.
That's the
and-
hardest part is getting, the info to people and how that.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game, right?
Right.
I wanted to follow up, and maybe you have another follow-up question. But earlier you said that there's a lot of stigma around being with substance abuse, and I remember in the 2016 presidential election, a lot of candidates were talking about this topic. There was that big movie down the Cape, but you look at that. That was 6 or 7 years ago, and you mentioned like you can't control it. You didn't actually. I don't think you actually used the word disease, but I've heard that in the past. So I don't. But I noticed that you did not use that word today because that's a word we don't use it or you don't use anymore. But do you think that there's, and just to be the devil's advocate here, is there any? Where is the personal responsibility in that formula that you talked to me about? Because in the way you described it, you kind of described it in a way that this is something I can't help but doing. But I think, just to be fair, I think there are a lot of people out there, and I do think it's somewhat based upon your age. I think, the younger you are, the lot more slack you get. But at some point, when you're
Yeah, you
well into your
absolutely-
20s, there is some point of personal responsibility.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like you just said, the younger they are, they get more slack, like you said. But yeah, you have to take responsibility. If you're wanting to get help and you want to fix what's happening, you have to own it. You have to be able to own it. And does everybody? No. But does everybody get help? No. But and again, that's where stigma comes in. Even going to the emergency rooms, people are still learning just because they're addicts. And yeah, they might have been here 10 times, but they're here because they're human. They're somebody's child, mother, daughter, aunt, uncle, or whoever, right? They deserve the help. Just for instance, I sent somebody to the hospital a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't because of her substance use disorder, but she had a long history. And they automatically assumed that she was high. And they called me, and the things that this emergency room doctor said to me, in this day and age, for me, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm like, no. Could she have relapsed? Yeah, absolutely. Was it possible? Sure. Did I think that it was? No, not with her behavior and everything. And it turned out that wasn't even the issue. And, but the treatment that she got while she was there, she was called a junkie and all, like, I won't, that word's gross. I don't like that word. I think it's just, again, it's the stigma.
Yeah, healthcare professionals, they're jaded.
Exactly. And I get it. Burnout's real. I get it. Totally get it. But we can't change if you're not willing to change, nothing's going to change. But yeah, accountability. Yeah, you absolutely. People have to take accountability for their actions, and accountability for what they've done, whether it be to themselves or other people. Because let's face it, addiction, right? When you're an addict, you're not always making good decisions.
Right.
And I used to always say, "Well, I never hurt anybody but myself." Yeah, I did. You know what I mean? I hurt everybody that loved me, who cared about me. And until I took that responsibility and changed my language, and that means, again, changing your language is taking responsibility, because you can check off all the boxes. I can hand you a sheet of paper and say, here's 52 things that you need to do, and you could check off all 52 of those things, but unless you change and you do the work and you change your language and you
Right.
change who you were to who you want to be, I don't care if you checked all those boxes off. Like, you're just checking boxes.
Right. So if we're really simplifying it, it's getting off the physical dependency of the substance. That's half of it, right? Half the battle. But then the other half is the mental component of it,
Right.
and taking ownership and moving forward and saying, I'm not going back to that, and I'm going to make these changes in my life so I don't end up there again.
And that's where people like us come in, right? And that's where we come in. Like, yeah, for the substance part of it, I'm there I try to be there from the very beginning when that person comes to me, how I can, if they're willing to go into detox, if I can find one. But I always say, you make sure I give them my card. Make sure you give this to whoever is there, so I can be part of your aftercare. So I can make sure we get you to the resources like what Ann might have, what the Family Resource might have to offer, or what PCO Hope might have to offer, or the Recovery Center downstairs might have to offer. As long as we can get them that, then the ball's kind of in their court at that point.
But I think the world needs more Sloanes. So it's great to say
A lot more.
We're going to pass this. You're going to go into detox, and when you come out the other end, I'm going to be here waiting to continue that
Right.
care. But the reality is there aren't enough people like her to do that work. So a
Right.
lot of people are coming out of detox. Same thing with the mental health world. You're coming out of an inpatient stay. You're hoping for aftercare. You should be getting aftercare. And the reality is you're not. So you're going right back into that system.
And that's another reason why I'm like, I give them my card. Tell them to call me.
Right.
Tell them I want to be part of that. Because there are unfortunately, so many times that, again, I call a detox a spin cycle. Mm-hmm. They go in, and then they come out, and nothing has changed other than they don't have anything in their system. But if the work's not getting done, if someone's not helping them get the work done, the likelihood of an overdose is 100 times more
Right.
now.
Is there a statistic about how many times somebody goes to detox before they actually turn things around?
If there is a statistic, I don't know it, so I don't want to quote it. But I can tell you, I have a girlfriend that has, I think, 8 years sober. She went to 52 different detoxes, 52 different
Wow.
programs. The 52nd program is what
did it?
did it. And I know people that have gone once and did it. I've known people that have gone 10 times and have done it. So I don't know
Right.
if there is a statistic. I don't know it, and I wouldn't believe it anyway.
So, our children go to Plymouth South High School, and I was just reading an email from the principal that Chris Herron is going to be speaking to. He was going to just speak to the underclassmen, and the seniors said, "Listen, if anyone, we need it too. We want to be in on this."
Yeah.
So they're doing that next week, I believe, and I want to say they're going to televise or record
He's
it.
fabulous. I've
Yeah,
met him on
so
several
because it kind of
occasions.
touches on both of your.
Yeah, and for those people who don't know, I'll just do a quick aside. For those people who don't know, Chris Herron was a star basketball player from the Fall River area, went to Boston College and played in the NBA for the Celtics, I believe, and then
Hopefully that's not too much.
and then developed I think they even made a movie out of his life, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he speaks to. He's always going somewhere.
Yeah.
But
Tremendous
apparently it's incredibly powerful. His
I've heard him. I've met him
Yeah.
a couple of different times, and I've heard him speak several times. It is very powerful, and he does address just about everything that we just talked about:
Right.
stigma,
So
mental health, follow through, taking responsibility, ownership. So yeah, if anybody can go and see him, I would totally. If you guys can go,
I think they're doing just the students, but I think I have to reread the email.
yeah,
I think they're gonna record it, so that
yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
it's definitely
not,
worth
we
a
can-
watch.
Well, we heard the bat phone. So
Sorry.
we will
No.
take that as our cue because we could literally talk about this all
Yeah,
day.
we
And I
just
know
touched
that
on
we
a few
want you
things.
guys to get back to work. Thank you so much,
thank you both.
Anne and Sloane. I'm not going to try for the last names. I did it the first time. And we're talking from Anne and Sloane from Bay State Community Services and Plymouth Family
Resource
Center. I'll get that right. Thank you.
Just spell it then.
But
a
it
good
says it right at
spelling.
the top of the page. Why couldn't I get
FRC,
that right?
if you want to go that way.
Hey,
FRC.
this is not. This is only our 5th episode, but I'm glad you joined us today. Again, you can find us on podcast at Spotify, YouTube, 1620today.com, or on Facebook. Thank you so much for watching, and it's great to have Beth back.
Thank you, and it's so nice to meet you, ladies.
Nice to meet you
Appreciate
both.
what you do. It's not easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.